A wounded Apache woman was given his only horse by a cowboy. What she offered him was beyond imagination. The sun was sinking low over the red dunes of planet Iridian, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and deep crimson. The wind whispered across the vast stretches of sand, carrying with it tiny particles of alien dust that glittered like gold under the dying light. In the distance, a lone figure moved, steady and deliberate. A cowboy, riding his hoverbike. The machine hummed softly, its hoverjets kicking up tiny clouds of sand as he traveled across the endless desert. His name was Jace Harper, known among the scattered human settlements as a man of few words but sharp instincts. Jace was a survivor. Born in one of the frontier colonies where humans had learned to adapt to alien landscapes, he had spent most of his life wandering alone. His hoverbike was his lifeline, his only companion on this harsh, unforgiving planet. Without it, survival would have been impossible. And tonight, it was the only thing keeping him alive. As Jace navigated a narrow canyon between two jagged rock formations, he noticed something unusual. There, half hidden among the red stones, was a figure slumped on the ground. At first, he thought it might be one of the many native creatures of the desert, but as he got closer, he realized it was a human, though not just any human. The woman had long dark hair streaked with dust, and her clothes were unlike any he had seen before. Her outfit had an intricate design, resembling the traditional garments of ancient Earth tribes, but it was clearly adapted for survival on Iridian. Her exosuit, which seemed to enhance strength and mobility, was cracked and sparking, and she looked weak and vulnerable. Jace slowed his hoverbike to a stop, keeping a cautious distance. He had learned over the years that the desert was dangerous, and trust could be deadly. Yet something about her presence, fragile yet resolute, drew him in. "Hey," he called softly, his voice careful. "Are you okay?" The woman lifted her head slowly. Her dark eyes met his, wary and alert. I'm hurt," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I can't move. Please help me." Jace studied her for a moment. He knew that helping strangers in the desert could be risky. There were rogue humans, alien scavengers, and natural predators that could strike without warning. But he also knew that leaving someone to die was not an option he could live with. He had learned early in life that humanity's strength came not just from survival skills, but from compassion, the courage to act when others turned away. Without another word, Jace dismounted his hoverbike and approached her carefully. "I can take you somewhere safe," he said, "but I don't have much to spare." The woman shook her head. "I don't need food or shelter. Just a way out of this canyon. I can't make it on foot." Jace glanced at his hoverbike, the only vehicle he owned. It was old, battered in places, but reliable. He had counted on it to carry him through countless dangers. Giving it away was almost unthinkable. And yet, looking at her, he felt a strange certainty, an instinct that this was the right thing to do. "I don't know what I'll do without this," he admitted. "It's my only way to survive." She smiled faintly, a shadow of gratitude and understanding passing over her face. Sometimes, giving is the only way to receive. Jace hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped aside. "All right." "Take it," he said, handing her the controls. "Just promise me you'll be careful." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You would give this to me? I'll survive somehow." He replied with a shrug. "You need it more than I do right now." The woman's hands trembled slightly as she took hold of the hoverbike controls. The machine responded to her touch as if recognizing a new master, its lights flickering in acknowledgement. She mounted the bike, her movements careful and deliberate, and with a gentle hum, the hoverbike lifted on. For a moment she hovered in place, as if testing her new gift. And then she smiled at him. "Thank you," she said softly. "I won't forget this." Jace watched as she carefully navigated out of the canyon, her figure slowly disappearing against the red horizon. Alone again, he felt a strange emptiness, but also a sense of hope, a feeling that something significant had just begun. He turned his gaze to the sky. The first stars were beginning to appear, glimmering like diamonds above the desert. He knew the night would be cold, and he would have to find shelter, but he didn't mind. There was a strange satisfaction in knowing that he had made a choice that mattered, not for survival, but for something higher, humanity. As he prepared to set up camp, he heard a faint sound carried on the wind, a melodic hum, almost like a song. He paused, listening carefully. It wasn't any sound he had heard before on Iridian. Curious, he followed the sound, moving through the desert with cautious steps. After a while, he came upon a small outcrop of rocks where the wind seemed to concentrate, and there, to his astonishment, he saw the woman again. She had landed her hoverbike nearby, kneeling beside a cluster of glowing stones. The stones pulsed with a soft blue light, almost as if they were alive. "What is this place?" Jace asked, stepping closer. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the stones. "This is a hidden canyon," she explained. "Few humans know it exists. These stones, they are special. They store energy, more than anything we could carry on our machines." Jace's curiosity piqued. He had seen many strange things on Iridian, but this was different. The stones seemed almost magical, humming with potential. "Why show me this?" he asked cautiously. "Because you helped me," she replied simply. "And because humans have a way of turning small chances into great outcomes. I need someone who can see possibilities, someone who can act when others hesitate." Jace studied her, realizing that she wasn't asking for help in the way most people did. She wasn't asking for weapons or resources, she was asking for trust. And he sensed that whatever lay ahead in this canyon, it would require courage, intelligence, and the kind of quick-thinking humans we're famous for. "All right," he said finally, nodding. "Show me." The woman smiled faintly, a spark of determination lighting her face. She extended a hand toward the stones, and the desert seemed to shift around them. The wind whispered, the sand swirled in patterns, and the glowing stones pulsed more brightly as if acknowledging their presence. Jace followed her instructions carefully, and together they began to examine the stones, discovering small channels of energy that could be redirected and stored. Each movement they made was deliberate, precise, a combination of human ingenuity and instinctive understanding. Hours passed, though the desert night made it hard to tell. The stars spun overhead in their silent arcs, and the temperature dropped sharply. Yet neither Jace nor the woman seemed to notice. They were focused, engaged, and fully alive in a way that only moments of discovery could create. Finally, she stood back and looked at him. "You see what I mean?" she asked. "With just a little knowledge, a little guidance, humans can turn almost nothing into something incredible." Jace nodded, feeling a sense of awe he hadn't experienced in years. "I see it," he admitted. "And I think you're right. Humans, we do have a way of making the impossible happen." She smiled, a genuine expression of gratitude and hope. "Then you will understand why I needed your help," she said. "Because now, what we do here, it could change the future of everyone on this planet." Jace looked at her, realizing that his small act of kindness, giving away his only hoverbike, had opened a door to something far bigger than either of them, something that was just beginning yet had the potential to grow beyond imagination. As the desert night deepened, the two of them worked side by side, their figures bathed in the glow of the stones. The air was filled with quiet anticipation, the kind that comes just before great change. And though neither of them spoke much, a shared understanding passed between them, the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, their minds, and their humanity itself. And so, under the endless stars of Iridian, a cowboy and a wounded woman, strangers in every way but one, stood together at the edge of something extraordinary, their futures entwined by trust, bravery, and the promise of discovery. Little did Jace know, the simple act of giving had already set in motion a chain of events that would prove one undeniable truth. Humans, when united with purpose and ingenuity, could achieve things beyond the imagination of any alien or machine. And in that quiet desert night, humanity's story began anew. The desert night on Iridian was colder than Jace Harper expected. The wind carried tiny grains of red sand that stung the skin when it blew across the open dunes. But Jace barely noticed. His attention was entirely on the glowing stones before him and on the woman who had guided him to them. She introduced herself at last. "My name is Nayeli," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I am an Apache of Earth heritage, though my people have long adapted to colonies like this. And now, it seems fate has led us together." Jace nodded, unsure what to say. "I'm Jace, just a cowboy trying to survive," he replied, glancing at the glowing stones. "But these, what are they? I've never seen anything like this before." Nayeli's eyes gleamed with quiet pride. "They are Iridian energy crystals. They store power far greater than anything humans or aliens currently use. If used properly, they could provide energy for entire settlements, maybe even a city. But they are delicate. One wrong touch, one wrong move, and their energy can be lost forever." Jace crouched closer, examining the stones. They pulsed with a soft bluish light, almost like living things. He instinctively reached out to touch one, but Nayeli's hand stopped him. "Wait," she said gently. "You must first understand their rhythm. Their energy responds to thought and movement. You can't force it, only guide it." Jace frowned. "So, it's like teaching a horse to obey?" Nayeli smiled. "Exactly. But this horse can power a city, not just carry you across the desert." For hours, Nayeli guided Jace through the delicate process of synchronizing with the stones. She moved her hands slowly over them, demonstrating how to channel energy without breaking its delicate balance. At first, Jace struggled. His hands were clumsy, his thoughts too scattered. The stones flickered weakly, some of the light dimming. Focus, Nayeli instructed. You have to feel their flow. Humans have a gift. We can see patterns, understand timing, and adapt. Let your mind become one with them. Jace closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Slowly, he allowed himself to observe the pulses of light, the subtle vibrations that ran through the crystal clusters. He felt it, tiny, almost invisible waves moving through the air. With a careful hand, he mirrored the rhythm, guiding the energy gently through one of the smaller stones. The crystal glowed brighter. Nayeli's eyes widened in surprise. "You're a natural," she said. "I didn't expect such instinct. You humans, you have a way of turning even the smallest advantage into something extraordinary." Jace shrugged, feeling a rare sense of pride. "I guess surviving the desert teaches a few tricks." Together they worked late into the night. Nayeli taught him the patterns, and Jace applied practical solutions, moving stones into positions that optimized energy flow, adjusting their alignment to capture the desert winds, even using his hoverbike to measure vibrations across the canyon floor. Slowly, they discovered that these crystals could store not just energy, but information. "You see," Nayeli said, crouched beside a glowing cluster, "they aren't just batteries, they remember. They adapt. They can anticipate patterns in energy use. With the right guidance, they could solve problems faster than any machine humans or aliens have ever built." Jace's mind raced. "So, we could power an entire settlement, even predict energy needs before they happen?" "Yes," Nayeli replied. "But it will take creativity, patience, and trust. And, one more thing." She paused, looking at him with intensity. "Humans are capable of thinking in ways no alien or AI can. That is why you are here. You have to help me teach others to use this, to guide them, not control them." Jace blinked, suddenly aware of the weight of responsibility. "Wait, this isn't just about helping me survive, is it? This is bigger. Much bigger." Nayeli nodded. "Yes. And it begins with understanding that humans are more than tools of survival. Our minds, our instincts, our courage, these are the things that can change the world. And right now, we are the only ones who can do it." Jace looked out over the canyon. The desert seemed endless, a vast expanse of danger and beauty. He had wandered this land alone for years, but tonight, for the first time, he felt part of something larger. A purpose beyond survival. As they worked, Nayeli shared her knowledge of the planet. She spoke of the hidden canyons filled with crystals, of storms that carried energy from the core of Iridian, and of ancient alien structures that had long been abandoned but were rich with technology humans had yet to understand. Jace listened intently, absorbing every word. His mind, sharpened by years of surviving the harsh desert, began to connect patterns she had only hinted at. "This place, it's a treasure trove," Jace said finally, "but no one will find it by accident. Not aliens, not humans, only those who are meant to be here." Nayeli smiled faintly. "Exactly. And those meant to be here must learn to work together. Humans have a way of solving problems that others cannot predict. They combine instinct with logic, creativity with practicality. That is why I need you." By the first light of dawn, Jace and Nayeli had achieved something remarkable. The crystals, once flickering and fragile, now pulsed with steady, controlled energy. Jace could feel the power flowing beneath his fingertips, not wild or dangerous, but alive and obedient to human guidance. "You see what I mean?" Nayeli said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Humans can do more than just survive. We can shape the world around us, improve it, protect it. And when we work together, even one human can make a difference no one else can imagine." Jace nodded, feeling a surge of pride and hope. "It's incredible. I've never felt anything like this. It's not just the crystals, it's what we can do with them." Nayeli reached out, touching his arm lightly. "And that is why I gave you the hoverbike. You trusted me. You acted without fear. That simple act, it proved that humans can lead, can create, can inspire. And that is how we will change the world." As the sun rose over the red dunes, the canyon seemed to glow with new life. The crystals shimmered in the morning light, reflecting possibilities rather than just energy. Jace realized that this was only the beginning. He and Nayeli had discovered not just a source of power, but a way to teach humans, and perhaps even other species, what true ingenuity could achieve. Over the next several days, Jace and Nayeli explored more of the canyon network. They discovered hidden chambers with clusters of crystals that responded to sound and movement, and formations that could amplify energy across vast distances. Jace's practical experience with machines and the desert environment allowed him to improvise solutions that Nayeli had not considered, while her knowledge of ancient techniques and energy flow guided his instincts. Together, they were unstoppable. One afternoon, while resting in a shaded canyon alcove, Nayeli turned to Jace with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "many humans think they are small, weak, or unimportant, but each of us carries something unique. Our minds, our hearts, our ability to trust one another, these are the things that make us powerful. Even when faced with advanced aliens or technology, humans have always found a way." Jace smiled, feeling the truth in her words. "I guess I always knew that. But it's different to see it like this, seeing what we can do together." Nayeli nodded. "And that is why I brought you here. Not because you are the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, but because you are human, and humans have a way of turning small chances into miracles." Jace looked around at the glowing crystals, the canyon walls, and the desert stretching beyond. For the first time, he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Hope that humans could do more than survive. They could thrive, that by working together, by trusting one another, they could achieve things that no machine, no alien, and no force of nature could ever anticipate. As night fell again, Jace and Nayeli sat beside the glowing stones, planning their next steps. They would need to return to the human settlement soon, to teach others how to use the crystals, how to harness their energy, and how to understand the possibilities that lay before them. It would not be easy. There would be skepticism, challenges, and obstacles, but together they were prepared. Jace realized that this partnership, born from a simple act of trust, had already changed him. He was no longer just a cowboy wandering the desert. He was part of something greater, a movement of humans who could adapt, learn, and innovate in ways the universe had not yet imagined. And as the stars appeared above the desert, shining like distant beacons, Jace understood the truth of Nayeli's words. Humans, when they work together and trust in their ingenuity, could accomplish things far beyond expectation. The sun rose slowly over the sprawling settlements on Iridian, casting long shadows across the red dunes. Jace, Harper, and Nayeli had returned from the hidden canyon before dawn, careful to avoid prying eyes. The settlements were modest, a scattering of human and hybrid colonies, each struggling to survive on a planet that tested every ounce of endurance. Jace had returned to a world that had once felt small and predictable, but now everything seemed larger, full of possibilities. He rode his hover bike through the narrow streets, past clustered houses built from reinforced desert rock and metal, while Nayeli walked beside him, carrying a small satchel filled with fragments of the glowing crystals. People stopped and stared as they passed. Jace noticed skeptical looks, whispers carried on the wind, and curious glances from children who ran barefoot over the dusty streets. This was not unusual. Humans were naturally cautious of strangers, especially those carrying strange gifts or promises of power. But Jace knew that skepticism could be overcome with action, and that humans respected results more than words. Nayeli approached the largest open square in the settlement. "We need to show them," she said quietly. "They will not believe words alone. Humans understand demonstrations. They understand proof. And tonight, we will show them what can be done." Jace nodded. He understood. On Iridian, survival often depended on showing, not telling. The desert had a way of judging truth in deeds rather than promises. As evening approached, the square began to fill with curious villagers. Children clung to their parents' skirts, their eyes wide with wonder. Traders and settlers leaned on carts, murmuring to each other. Everyone sensed that something unusual was about to happen. Jace and Nayeli set the crystals carefully on a raised platform. The glowing stones pulsed softly, almost imperceptibly, as if sensing the gathering crowd. Nayeli knelt beside them, her fingers tracing the energy patterns she had memorized. "Watch closely," she said. "What you see is not magic, not a trick. This is the power of collaboration, of observation, and of human ingenuity." Jace stepped forward. "I'll show them how it works," he said. He extended his hands toward a cluster of crystals. His mind, trained over years in the desert, began to sense the rhythm of the energy, the subtle shifts in vibration that most humans would never notice. Slowly, deliberately, he guided the energy through the crystals. The stones pulsed brighter, their glow filling the square with soft light. The villagers gasped, stepping back instinctively, but their fear was mingled with awe. Small sparks of energy jumped between the stones, forming patterns that resembled maps of the settlement, its wind currents, and even the movement of animals in nearby dunes. Nayeli smiled. "See, the crystals respond not just to force, but to thought, to timing, to observation. And humans have a unique advantage here. We can understand, improvise, and adapt." A young boy stepped closer, his eyes wide. "Can we touch them?" he asked, his voice trembling. Jace shook his head gently. "Not yet. These are sensitive. But you can watch, you can learn." He continued to guide the energy. using his practical instincts to adjust the alignment of the crystals while Nayeli interpreted the patterns and suggested subtle shifts. Together, they demonstrated a process that humans could easily replicate once taught. The villagers' initial skepticism began to fade, replaced by curiosity and determination. "Humans have always had one thing aliens do not," Nayeli said, her voice carrying over the square. "We have imagination, we have flexibility, and we have courage. We can see patterns, make connections, and act in ways that others cannot predict." One of the traders, a tall man with sun-darkened skin, stepped forward. "And you expect us to do this?" he asked, incredulous. "With these stones?" "Yes," Nayeli replied calmly. "And I will teach you, but first, you must understand the principle. Humans are not tools of power. They are guides of power. These stones respond to us, not the other way around. They amplify what we already do. And what we do best is adapt, observe, and innovate." Jace looked around. The villagers were beginning to understand. Children mimicked his hand movements, tracing invisible patterns in the air. Adults whispered to each other, comparing observations, testing ideas quietly among themselves. For the first time, Jace realized that the energy in the crystals was not just a source of power, it was a catalyst for human ingenuity. Nayeli demonstrated another layer of control. With subtle gestures, she shifted the energy to flow through the crystals in a circular pattern. The glow expanded, forming arcs that reached toward the settlement's water reservoir. The villagers gasped. With a few careful adjustments, Jace and Nayeli directed energy to illuminate the settlement, powering lights that had long remained dark, purifying small quantities of water, and even assisting in small mechanical repairs. "It's incredible," one of the elders whispered. "It's like the desert itself is helping us." Jace shook his head. "It's not the desert," he said quietly. "It's us, humans. We figured out how to work with it." The crowd began to murmur excitedly. For the first time in months, they felt hope. The desert had always been harsh, unforgiving, and isolating. But now, it seemed like a partner, responding to human skill and ingenuity. As the night deepened, Jace and Nayeli continued their demonstration, showing how even small actions could have ripple effects. A slight adjustment to a crystal here could redirect energy to the farthest edge of the settlement. A minor shift in rhythm there could power multiple devices simultaneously. Humans could think in ways that the energy seemed to anticipate, adapting faster than the stones could destabilize. "This is what I mean by human advantage," Nayeli said, addressing the crowd. "Aliens may have strength, machines may have speed, but humans have imagination, creativity, and intuition. That is something no one can match." Jace nodded in agreement. "We survive not because we are strongest, but because we can see what others cannot. We can act when others hesitate. And tonight, we've shown that even energy itself listens when guided by human hands." Some villagers began to experiment on their own, moving smaller crystal fragments under Nayeli's guidance. At first, they struggled. Patterns faltered, energy flickered, and small sparks dissipated into the air. But gradually, each person found a rhythm, a method that worked for them. And slowly, the settlement began to glow, not just from the crystals, but from the shared sense of accomplishment and pride. Jace stepped back, watching the transformation. The glow of the settlement reached the edges of the desert, a soft, living light against the red dunes. For the first time, he saw the full potential of humans working together, an advantage not in strength, but in ingenuity, collaboration, and courage. Nayeli placed her hand on his shoulder. "Look at them," she said. "This is why I brought you here. You could have wandered the desert alone, surviving day by day. But together, we can create something far greater than survival. We can thrive." Jace felt a surge of pride. He had always known humans could endure, could adapt, and could survive. But now, seeing his fellow humans learning, experimenting, and mastering the crystals, he understood that their potential was limitless. The stones were not just energy. They were a mirror, reflecting human creativity, resilience, and vision. As the night continued, Jace and Nayeli guided the villagers to plan improvements for the settlement. Water systems could be powered more efficiently, lights could extend further into the streets, and simple machines could operate without fuel. And more than that, the villagers began to talk about possibilities they had never dared to imagine before: new settlements, farming systems, and even communication with distant colonies. A young girl tugged at Jace's sleeve. "Will we really be able to do this every night?" she asked, eyes wide with excitement. Jace knelt down to her level. "Yes," he said softly. "And soon, you won't need us to guide you. You'll be able to see the patterns, feel the energy, and make it work yourself. That's the power humans have. We can learn, adapt, and teach each other. And once we do, there's nothing we cannot accomplish." The girl's eyes sparkled. "We can really do it?" Jace smiled. We already are. By the time the first rays of dawn stretched across the dunes, the entire settlement was alive with light and energy. The villagers had learned the rhythm of the crystals, discovered their own ways to channel power, and embraced the idea that humans, working together, could achieve extraordinary things. Jace and Nayeli stood on a small rise overlooking the settlement. The desert stretched endlessly beyond, still harsh and unforgiving. Yet tonight, it seemed different. It was no longer just a place of survival. It was a stage for human ingenuity, a canvas waiting for the strokes of courage, creativity, and collaboration. Nayeli turned to Jace, her expression calm but determined. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The settlements will grow, humans will learn, and one day, they may accomplish things that no alien, no machine, and no force in the universe could imagine. All because we trusted, acted, and used our minds." Jace looked down at the glowing settlement and felt a sense of awe. The power of the crystals was impressive, yes, but it was the humans, their minds, their instincts, and their willingness to act that had truly made the difference. That was the human advantage, and tonight it had been revealed to all. The journey ahead would not be easy. Challenges awaited both from the desert and beyond, but for the first time in his life, Jace knew that humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, pioneers, and a force to be reckoned with. And together, guided by ingenuity, courage, and trust, they could accomplish things beyond imagination. And under the Iridian stars, glowing softly over the desert, humanity's story continued, stronger and brighter than ever. The desert of Iridion stretched endlessly beneath a pale dawn. From the small rise overlooking the settlement, Jace Harper could see the glow of energy crystals pulsating softly across the streets, illuminating the lives of the people below. It was quiet for a moment, a peaceful calm, the kind that comes after the first spark of a great beginning. But Jace knew this was only the start. Nayeli stood beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We've shown them the power," she said softly, "but now we must help them understand its purpose. Energy without guidance is just light. Knowledge without action is just thought. Humans need both." Jace nodded. He felt a deep satisfaction, but also a growing excitement. They had already transformed the settlement. They had taught humans to adapt, to guide energy, and to innovate in ways that aliens or machines could not anticipate. But the desert was vast, and beyond these dunes lay other settlements, other people, and other challenges. Humanity's influence could spread farther than they had ever imagined. The first group of villagers gathered around them, eager for instruction. Men and women, old and young, carried small tools, notebooks, and even mechanical fragments. Children, excited and fearless, moved between the adults, observing and learning. Jace felt a wave of pride as he realized how quickly humans adapted when given opportunity and trust. Nayeli began with a demonstration. She lifted her hands over a cluster of crystals, guiding the energy to flow along precise paths. Lights powered devices, water was purified, and small machines began to operate smoothly without fuel. The villagers watched in awe. Then, under Nayeli's careful instruction, they tried it themselves. Some failed at first, others succeeded immediately. Laughter, exclamations of wonder, and thoughtful murmurs filled the square. Jace walked among them, offering guidance where needed. "Think about cause and effect," he advised a group of men adjusting a crystal array. "The energy flows where your hands lead it, but your mind must anticipate the result. Humans can see patterns, others cannot. Use that." One of the villagers, a young woman named Lena, approached him with a question. "Why do humans have this advantage?" she asked. "Why can we do what aliens cannot?" Jace smiled. "Because humans are not just machines. We observe, we imagine, we adapt. Others may have more strength or speed, but humans can think in ways that surprise even the universe. We connect ideas, see possibilities, and act on them. That's our edge." Lena nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "Then we can teach others too," she said. "Yes," Nayeli added. "That is the next step. Energy and crystals are powerful, but knowledge is what spreads. Humans must lead, inspire, and guide each other. That is how change grows." Over the following days, Jace and Nayeli visited nearby settlements, bringing the knowledge of the crystals and teaching humans how to use them. Each place presented unique challenges. One village had scarce water, another lacked reliable shelter, and a third had mechanical systems failing from years of neglect. But every time, humans adapted. They solved problems creatively, collaborated instinctively, and improved on the techniques Jace and Nayeli taught them. One evening, after guiding a small settlement to harness crystal energy to irrigate their desert farms, Jace paused to look at the horizon. The desert was no longer a lonely, unchanging wasteland. Instead, faint lights shimmered in clusters, settlements glowing with controlled energy, evidence of human ingenuity spreading like sparks across a dark canvas. Nayeli joined him silently. "Do you see it?" she asked. "It's more than light, it's progress, hope, and potential. Humans are leaving footprints that no alien or machine could ever trace." Jace smiled. "It's incredible, and we're just getting started." But it wasn't just energy and technology that were spreading. Humans were learning to think differently. Settlers started creating networks to share discoveries, experimenting with new ways to improve life on Iridian. Children learned quickly, using curiosity and creativity to adapt crystal energy to games, communication devices, and even simple transportation. Humans were no longer merely surviving, they were thriving. One night, as the twin moons of Iridian rose into the sky, casting a silver glow over the dunes, Jace and Nayeli observed a remarkable sight. Across the desert, the settlements were beginning to link, channels of crystal energy connecting distant villages. Energy once confined to individual clusters was now flowing between communities, powering lights, machinery, and systems across miles of desert. Jace's eyes widened. "They've done it," he said in awe. "They figured out a way to connect everything without our constant guidance." Nayeli nodded, her face calm but shining with pride. "Exactly. Humans take knowledge, adapt it, improve it, and make it their own. That is why we gave you the hoverbike. Because one small act of trust can lead to a chain of events beyond imagination. You've helped create something far bigger than survival. You've helped ignite potential." The following weeks were filled with teaching, guiding, and learning. Jace found himself constantly amazed at what humans could achieve when trusted with responsibility. Farmers used crystal energy to cultivate crops in harsh soil, engineers created water systems that required no fuel, and communities developed communication networks that linked distant settlements like never before. And yet, the most remarkable development was the humans themselves. They had begun to trust one another, share ideas freely, and innovate collectively. Fear and isolation were being replaced by courage, collaboration, and confidence. And Jace realized something profound. The desert had not changed, the planet had not grown easier, but humans had evolved in their approach. They had found strength in creativity and ingenuity, a true HFY moment that no external force could replicate. One day, as Jace rested in the shade of a canyon, a group of children ran past him, laughing and waving tiny crystal-powered lights. He watched them, thinking about how far humans had come in such a short time. Their minds were sharp, their instincts alive, and their creativity limitless. He felt an overwhelming sense of hope. Humanity's potential, once confined to survival, was now limitless. Nayeli approached him, holding a small crystal that pulsed gently in her hand. "Jace," she said, "this is a gift, not for survival, not for power, but to remind you what humans can achieve. It is a reflection of ingenuity, courage, and trust. Take it, and remember that humans, working together, can accomplish anything." Jace accepted the crystal, feeling its gentle warmth pulse in sync with his heartbeat. It was not a weapon. It was not a tool of control. It was a symbol, a reminder that humans could inspire, innovate, and achieve far beyond expectation. Over time, the settlements began to thrive like never before. What had started as scattered villages now formed a connected network of knowledge, innovation, and energy. Humans experimented, taught, and improved upon the techniques Jace and Nayeli had introduced. They built sustainable farms, clean water systems, and even small spacecraft that relied on crystal energy for fuel. Jace watched from a distance, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. He remembered when he had given Nayeli his only hoverbike, a simple act of trust in the middle of a desert canyon. That single choice had started a chain of events that had transformed countless lives, and now humanity was proving itself beyond imagination. Nayeli joined him again. "Do you see what humans are capable of?" she asked. "We are resilient, we are creative, we adapt, and we inspire. That is why the universe should never underestimate us." Jace nodded, thinking about every village, every settlement, and every human who had learned, adapted, and grown in these past weeks. The desert was no longer a place of struggle. It was a stage for human ingenuity. The final night came quietly. Twin moons bathed the desert in silver light. From the highest dune, Jace and Nayeli looked over the settlements, glowing like a constellation across the sands. Humans had turned survival into achievement, adaptation into innovation, and trust into a chain of growth that no alien or machine could interrupt. Nayeli placed her hand on Jace's shoulder. "You see, that is the true HFY story. Not because of strength, not because of weapons, not because of dominance, but because humans can imagine, adapt, and act when it matters most. They can take a single act of kindness and turn it into something the universe never expected. Jace smiled, feeling the truth in her words. He remembered the first time he had handed over his hoverbike, thinking it was a loss. Now he knew it had been the beginning. A small gesture of trust had created a ripple that had changed the desert and perhaps the future of humanity itself. As the moons rose higher, the glow of the settlements reflected off the desert sands. Humans laughed, shared, learned, and created. The energy crystals pulsed gently, guided by human hands, reflecting the ingenuity and courage of a species that refused to be ordinary. And for Jace Harper, the lone cowboy who had once wandered the desert alone, the story had come full circle. Humanity had not only survived, they had thrived. They had turned a harsh, unforgiving desert into a beacon of hope, knowledge, and creativity. And that, he realized, was a story beyond imagination. The desert wind carried whispers across the dunes, a soft chorus of possibility. Humans had proven that they were more than survivors. They were innovators, pioneers, and a force that no machine, no alien, and no challenge could ever surpass. And so, under the silver glow of Iridian's twin moons, humanity's story continued, stronger, brighter, and more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined.